This meeting is being recorded. Jai Baba, everybody. Welcome to the Lord Meher book reading. We are reading the online edition since a year and plus. I'm so happy that you'll have joined in. I would request you all to just close your eyes briefly and connect with Meher Baba for a few seconds and experience his love and grace, kindness, and gratitude towards him. Just breathing in and out and connecting with him deeper and deeper and deeper. And I request everyone to be muted while we each take turns to read online. And after the meeting, we'll have a short, brief chat in case anyone would like to discuss anything in his love and grace. So, Eva, I request you to scroll down because we had the last para left in this. Yeah. Okay. Anita DiCaro, Howard Inches, and Grace Mann, Josephine and Darwin, if he would like to write to Baba. He did pouring out his heart. He did pouring out his heart in a letter offering his life in Baba's service. Darwin immediately mailed it and returned to the retreat for dinner. Halfway through the meal, he began to feel Baba replying to the letter. Darwin felt a welling through the heart with unmistakable love, answering everything in my letter. And tears began falling from his eyes, although he deeply regretted missing Baba. Darwin was happy that he had found Baba's followers and longed for the day when he could meet the master in, in the flesh. In 1934, uh, therefore, it was truly a joyous occasion when Darwin and Jane Shaw, both 26, received a telegram from Norina saying that Meher Baba was on his way to New York City and she had made an appointment for them to meet the master at his hotel on 12th December. Darwin made all the necessary preparations to take advantage of this opportunity and eagerly awaited the day of Baba's arrival. Just a second. Yeah. Darwin and Jean awoke at 4 in the morning on the 12th and prepared to drive the 170 miles to Manhattan. But when they opened their door, they found a telegram hanging on the doorknob which read, "Your appointment has been cancelled. You may see Baba at a reception on Thursday the 13th." Shocked, they stared at each other. Then Darwin tore up the telegram and then he decided to go to New York anyway, taking the chance they might catch a glimpse of Meher Baba in the hotel lobby. They arrived at the Shelton Hotel a short time before Baba was to arrive. Lorena walked in, saw them, and asked, "My dears, what are you doing here? Didn't you get my cable?" "Yes," they replied, "but we haven't come for an interview. We are here in the hopes we might catch a glimpse of Baba as he passes by." Norina said, "Baba's in the taxi following the one I came in. He'll be here any moment. Maybe he'll see you just for a minute when he comes." Just then Baba walked in. The winter weather was very cold outside, and he was dressed in a long overcoat and a hat with his long hair tucked under it. Norina walked quickly over to Baba to explain the situation. Baba looked over at his two longing souls and nodded in agreement. He strode over to them with Norina. Darwin described this momentous first meeting with their long awaited beloved. Norina said, Baba, sorry, I could not begin to tell you how we felt when Baba looked into our eyes. When he clasped our hands, I felt his head, his hand clasp might have reached down through many centuries and many lifetimes. The first result of the impact of his love was a great sense of spiritual upliftment, joy, and happiness. There are probably other superlatives I could use, but none of them would be adequate to describe how I felt. This was a first glimpse into those infinite pools of divine love that were his eyes. I was overjoyed. His beauty, the sweetness of his love, which could not be expressed in words, the joy, the sparkling wonder of his being, one could not prefigure him. One could not imagine how it would be, what he would be like. He was more than one could imagine, much more, immeasurably more. After this brief meeting, Baba and Norina walked toward the elevator, and Darwin and Jean moved toward some chairs in the lobby. Jean had not had the inner experiences of Baba's love as Darwin had prior to his first meeting, and so she was not as sure about him. Somehow she was impelled to turn in order to get another glimpse of Baba. To her surprise, just as he turned, Baba also turned and looked directly at her. To her surprise, he folded his hands and bowed slightly to her. Jane turned quickly away, not wanting him to think, she was staring. But in spite of herself, she could not resist turning twice more to look, and each time Baba also turned, folded his hands, and bowed to her. Jean began to realize that the master knew her innermost thoughts, and she concluded Baba really must be something. A meeting concerning the film work took place that day between Baba, Norina, Gabriel, Pascal, and Carl Wallmeyer. Wallmoyer. An agreement between the later two seemed difficult to arrive at. Wallmoyer, the principal screenwriter, wanted the scenario prepared in New York, and Pascal, the director, preferred Hollywood. Wallmoyer had his offices in New York, and Pascal's were in Hollywood, hence the conflict. Trying to reconcile the two men's differences and to get them to work together, Baba instructed, both of you should fly to Hollywood and meet me there. I will be coming by train later. Both men consented to do so and left soon afterward. Rano and Noni Gale Lee home was in New York. Baba had instructed them to stay there, but to who are you? When they first went to Baba's room, they posted on guard duty, and she prevented them from. And we were with Baba for 8 days. She did so and then allowed them to pass. Noni had wanted to bring her 4-year-old grandson Oliver to Baba, but the boy's mother was afraid and would not allow it. When Noni told Baba, he reassured her, because of your connection with me, your whole family is connected to me. So do not be unhappy about the boy. After meeting Baba in the hotel lobby, Darwin and Jean did not expect to see him again that day. They were content just to sit in the lobby knowing that Baba was close by. Next page. Another newcomer showed up, an elderly woman named Bessie Allen, also from
Schenectady.
Chennai. Yeah,
Schenectady.
thank you. Yeah. She had baked a cake for Baba and sat beside the shores in the lobby. Oh, I'm craving to eat some cake too. After meeting with those involved in the film projects, Baba indicated that there were to be more interviews. Holding up three fingers, he gestured to Elizabeth. There are three people sitting in the lobby. Go bring them up. Elizabeth brought Darwin, Jean, and Bessie to Baba's suite, where they were overjoyed to be in his presence and overwhelmed by his beauty. Baba sat on the bed, wearing a sadra with his long hair down. Jean was so struck by his splendor that she did not see anyone else in the room. Darwin recollected. My first reaction was that he was indescribably beautiful. Then I had the impression of two opposites, that he was like a warmth that might float away at an instant, and also like a tower of strength, immeasurably powerful. They sat near him, Jean on Baba's left, Darwin on her right, and Bessie's on Baba's right. The close proximity to Baba proved too much for Bessie, who exclaimed exuberantly, "At last I have found you, my master," and threw her arms around Baba. Jean felt like doing the same thing, but was too shy. She began to weep and could not stop. Baba turned off the, how do you pronounce that, Eva?
Faucet.
Fau- Faucet? Okay, thank you. Baba turned off the faucet by placing his hand on Jean's wrist. Instantly, she became calm, serene, and happy. Darwin recounted what followed. Baba looked past her and into my eyes. He looked so deeply. It seemed as though he was moving things aside so that he could see back and back. And I knew he saw through and through. It was not heavy, it was light and beautiful and joyous. There was never any feeling of coming before the judge or of any kind of measuring us for what we were. We felt that we were different kinds of beings in his presence. Somehow he took us out of ourselves. We were relaxed in his love. The wonderful thing about Baba is that no matter what you are and what you've been, he loves you steadfastly, eternally. Always remember, he loves you. Baba mentioned to Darwin and Jean, "I have always been helping you spiritually." Turning to Norina, Baba gestured, "Make an appointment for them to see me the day after tomorrow." Norina said, "But there's no room, Baba." "Never mind, make room." Baba embraced them and they left. Norina, whom the Shaws knew well, was outside. Baba had been holding back the floodgates of tears for Jean. But when she left his presence, the gates opened and the tears began to flow. That evening, Baba and his close group went to Radio City Music Hall, the largest movie theater in the world at the time. The temperature was bitterly cold, and Baba's health was poor. When he returned to the hotel, he vomited and began to run a slight fever. He indicated that he wished to fast. Baba's health continued to be poor. Baba had originally scheduled a longer stay in New York, but his ship had been delayed after leaving Port Said because of the bad weather, so he was able to stay in New York for only 3 days. Since he had to meet with the persons involved with the film projects, There was no opportunity for him to grant private interviews. He did make an exception for Minta Toledano. Minta had recently divorced and had brought her 7-year-old daughter to New York to live with her ex husband, Herbert, who had moved from Panama. Baba met Herbert and the girl and invited Minta to join the group accompanying him to California. Adi Sr. noted in his diary on 13 December, overnight attack of illness. Mr. Baba still continues in a listless and dull feeling, accompanied by a severe headache and pain in the back. So Baba is declining every interview Norina wants to arrange. Two general receptions had been planned by Norina, but Baba permitted only one to be held, even though he was feeling unwell. It was at Stokes's home on the 13th. And footnote, please. Graham Phelps Stokes later shifted his devotion away from Baba. He was more interested in meditation, Vedanta, and inner experiences than following Meher Baba's teachings of service to a master. Stokes never lost his deep respect for Baba, but he was unable to accept him as the avatar. Subsequently, he authored a booklet titled The Ever Returning Christ, about the oneness of all avatars, but Meher Baba is not mentioned in it. The booklet was forwarded by Swami Shivananda of Rishikesh, who was associated with the Vedanta movement, who Stokes may have met through Swami Paramananda of Boston, also a Vedantist. Baba gave darshan to nearly 200 people. The upstairs library was used for the group to gather, while Baba met each individual privately in a small room of to one side where Stokes meditated. People were instructed no questions and no talking. And then ushered into
Usher,
sorry, and then ushered in to be with Baba, who was seated in a green sofa chair. A dim, soft red light illuminated the room. Age recorded. No one had a chance to speak to Baba, but he spoke inwardly with them, which is the true spirituality. Of what use are words and interviews when one can have the beloved's physical touch, which all received? One learned one learned man who came was Dr. Frederick Kettner, 48, a well known professor of philosophy and author who had previously met Baba at Harman in 1931. Footnote, please. Thank you. Frederick Kettner later founded the Institute of the Advancement of Cultural and Spiritual Values to promote his philosophy of biosophy. One of his goals was to create a world fellowship of peace loving human beings who have overcome religious, national, racial, and social prejudices, who can work creatively for the growth of democracy, spiritual, personal growth, and world peace. Thank you. Baba gave darshan, when ushered in to meet the master, he felt Baba's presence so strongly. He held his hand for several minutes while remaining dumbfounded. Next page, and Marvin, can you take over from here? Thank you.
he stared at Baba's eyes and face as if in a trance. He could not find words to express his feelings and could only blurt out, "Can I come with you to India?" Baba spelled out to him to wait until called and indicated that for certain he would be called. Kettner was disappointed, but Baba spelled out, "Do not think of physically coming to me. Come spiritually." They sat together quietly for some time, Kettner holding Baba's hand in his. Baba then spelled out, "Things that are real are given and received in silence." Tears came to the man's eyes, and he could not stop their flow. Georges Machiavelli was another visitor. Although his interview lasted only 2 minutes, it had a profound effect, according to Narina. She reported that Georges told her, "You were right, Meher Baba is real." The prince passed away 3 months later. As the master had predicted, Georges had a beautiful experience just before he died of Baba as the Christ. That was Narina's husband. Gavin, author, met Baba again in New York. The actress Tallulah Bankhead was also in New York and dropped by the Stokeses to see Baba during this occasion and saw him again the next day at the Shelton Hotel. The reporter and publicist Henry James Foreman saw Baba that day at the hotel as well. Foreman had been working in the motion picture industry, and Baba solicited his help in the film project, asking him to serve as the secretary for Circle Productions, to which Foreman agreed. The Shaws came to the reception and received a brief embrace from the master. But unlike most of the others who left after meeting Baba, they sat in the library where they could drink the wine of the beloved sight each time the door of Baba's room opened to let a person leave and another enter. When the program ended, after nearly 2 hours, Darwin and Jean were indeed intoxicated. Baba knowingly smiled at them as he passed by to return to his hotel. The Shaws again saw Baba in the Shelton Hotel for 20 minutes the following afternoon, 14 December, along with Donald Holloway and Faith Valentine. Darwin described this meeting. We were directed to a large living room. There we saw Baba looking radiantly beautiful, wearing a white sadra and sandals. Baba's secretary, Chanji, was the only other person in the room. Although it was a sunny afternoon, there seemed to be an unusual lightness in the room, and I realized it emanated from Baba. As I looked at it, this lightness became, for me at least, a brilliant glory, and it was thus that I beheld the Christ in the glorious radiance of divine love. Baba sat down on a wide sofa and motioned for us to sit on either side of him. The other couple sat on Baba's left, while Jean and I sat next to Baba on his right side. I felt that somehow I must get close to Baba, so I knelt directly in front of him and sat back on my heels. Baba was indescribably beautiful, and his love lifted our spirits, filling our hearts with a blissful sweetness that was beyond happiness. As on the previous occasions with Baba, there seemed to be no need for much conversation. We were communicating with Baba, and he with us, at a much deeper level, the level of love. Baba did spell out that through love, you will come to see me as I really am. At that time, we could not imagine him in any more wonderful way than as we saw him then. As we sat there, I thought, this is such a wonderful experience. Wouldn't it be great if Baba gave us some little thing to keep as a memento of this occasion? Instantly, Baba clapped his hands and had Chanji bring a rose. Then Baba gave each of us a petal to keep as a memento of this occasion. Baba sat with his legs crossed and then placed his raised foot just a few inches in front of me. I could scarcely believe my eyes as, looking at his lovely foot, I realized that here was the sacred foot of Christ. Scenes from the New Testament flashed across my mind, and I especially recalled the scene of Mary of Bethany anointing the feet of Jesus with precious ointment and then wiping them with her hair. I was taken by an overwhelming impulse to kiss Baba's foot, thinking, when would I ever have the chance to kiss the sacred foot of Christ? So I bent forward and lovingly kissed his foot. A few minutes later, Baba drew me close to him. I bent my head. Baba lifted it and kissed my forehead. The Shaws were not to see Baba again until 1952, but remained faithful and in communication all of those years. After 3 days in New York, on Friday, 14 December 1934, Baba took a train westward across America, headed for California. Besides the mandali of Chanji, Kaka, Adi Sr., and Jalbai, accompanying him were Elizabeth, Narina, Minta, Nadine, Rano, Noni, and Ruano. During the 3.5-day journey to Los Angeles, the train halted briefly at a few places along the way, such as Chicago, where they changed trains to the Santa Fe, California Limited, and Kansas City. Baba was headed for Hollywood and occupied himself with reviewing the film scripts and discussing the variations in plots and characters. The train halted in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for 30 minutes at noon on the 17th. Baba spelled out Indian on the palm of his hand. He suddenly left his compartment with Ruano. The mandali followed them. Baba walked 2 blocks away from the station, arm in arm with Ruano. Then he spotted a small side street. Abruptly, he turned down it and continued on as if he knew exactly where he was headed. Ruano's only thought was that they were going to miss the train. Baba stopped when he noticed 2 Native American Indians, probably Navajo, standing on the corner. One was selling trinkets, and he walked away as soon as Baba approached. The other Indian was a tall, fat man with a red bandana tied around his head. He stayed exactly where he was. He and Baba then stood facing one another. Their eyes met, but no words were spoken. Baba then walked quickly back to the station and boarded the train. Once on the train, Ruano narrated the incident to the others, and Baba commented about the Indian. He is one of my agents. He is the direct agent in charge of America. Baba later explained that he was an agent of the 4th plane, one of the 4 in the world with subtle powers. The train arrived in Pasadena, California, on the morning of the 18th of December. Jean and Malcolm Schloss greeted Baba and his group at the train station. They drove to a rented house in Los Angeles at number 1840 Camino Palmero, where Baba was to stay for 3 weeks. Once settled in, Baba warned the group, we should not spend more than is necessary on food, so arrange the meals in ways that they may not be costly. Rather than eating at restaurants, they hired a woman to do the cooking, and Ruano began to manage the shopping. Baba wanted spinach every day, and Ruano washed it herself before having it cooked. After a lapse of 2.5 years, Baba had returned to Hollywood, but his presence now was an absolute secret. His address was not publicized in the newspapers because this would have aroused many people seeking to meet him, causing the film work he had come for to be disrupted. During Baba's stay, daily meetings were held with Norina, Elizabeth Volmoller, and another writer, William A. Drake. Pascal and his friend Hyman S. Kraft, a continuity writer, to discuss the films. Baba explained to them in detail the theme of creation, reincarnation, the planes, and God realization. It was all quite novel for these men, and they found it difficult to portray everything in the way Baba wished. Baba liked both Drake and Kraft, commenting that Kraft was honest and sincere. Initially, Kraft was skeptical about Baba, but after their first meeting, he came away shaken. He described to Pascal, there was a tremendous power emanating from that man. Kraft found it impossible to say no to Baba and was engaged to collaborate on a script. There were 2 separate film stories, one by Volmoller titled This Man David, the other by Kraft and his associates titled How It All Happened. The idea about the airplane and its passengers, perfection, was discarded for the time being. Because of this film work, Baba met with a number of motion picture executives, directors, producers, and managers from different studios, including Joseph von Sternberg. Footnote: Karl von Moeller and von Sternberg had worked together in Germany before coming to America. Von Moeller had also been one of the writers on the von Sternberg Marlene Dietrich film, The Blue Angel. Von Sternberg had met Baba in Hollywood in 1932. Wait a second, I lost the photos. Wait. Sorry, I lost the text here.
It's the paragraph starting because of this film work.
No, I can't see it on my screen. I switched screens somehow.
Can you just scroll down a bit?
I don't know why I can't find it here. You know what? Somebody else take over right now.
Yeah. Eva, why don't you read?
Yeah, I'll take over. I'll take over right after the footnote. It was found difficult to blend the material aspect of production with the spiritual theme in an instructive and interesting presentation that the public would find appealing. Although the various persons concerned came to see Meher Baba strictly on business, they were all deeply impressed with his divine personality and spiritual glow. They would invite Baba to their homes, and he consented to a few. Baba also visited Paramount Universal, 3 January 1935, Fox, 4 January, and Warner Brothers Studios, where he met many celebrities, including the French singer Maurice Chevalier, and was photographed with actress Alice Faye. At Fox Studio, the Oklahoma humorist Will Rogers conversed with Baba for a few minutes about Gandhi and Eastern philosophy, and said he would come and see Baba if he visited India. Footnote: Will Rogers never had the opportunity to visit India. He died in a plane crash 8 months after meeting Baba. After his death, Will Rogers was considered the most loved of all Americans. His 1935 funeral in California was believed to be the biggest turnout of mourners, estimated at 150,000, since the death of Abraham Lincoln. Will Rogers Ranch Overview, California State Parks. End of footnote. Baba also saw several films in Hollywood, one of which was Imitation of Life at the Pantages Theater on Hollywood Boulevard near Vine Street. During Baba's absence, Malcolm and Jean had passed through difficult times and endured financial hardships. Jean asked Baba whether these times were meant to test their resilience and develop their capacity to endure suffering for his sake. Yes, Baba replied, you must be able to face disappointment, criticism, and negative forces with perfect calm and inner poise. And you must submit yourself at all times to the will of God. It was Baba's first Christmas in the West, as he pointed out to Will and Mary Beckett in England in the following letter from Hollywood, summarizing the frustrations of raising money for the film project. After a brief stay in New York for only 2 days, I have come here. The 7 days in the rough seas, the busy time in New York, and again, a long journey for 4 days across the country. The thought of the film and money hanging all the while in mind. The visits and interviews resumed ever since I set foot here with everyone who could help are all so tiresome. And with all that, there are no hopes of getting any financial backing for an independent production of this type, which every businessman feels as a big enterprise involving great risk. Activities are therefore directed to find a producer to whom the story could be sold, so that those who invested in this may have their money back. If an independent producer buys the story, then of course there will be no necessity for me to stay unless they themselves ask. So I have, for the present, decided that if during my stay here, the independent production is not arranged for lack of funds or financial support, I will hand over the script to dear Norina and Elizabeth, giving them instructions either to sell it or get it produced as they think best. I cannot stay here indefinitely. I have to see to my other affairs of the Mandali and others on that side too. And if nothing is arranged, I will leave here very probably by the first week of January. They are still trying their very best, Norina, Elizabeth, and Noni. And many important people in the picture are brought in for interviews. Nice people indeed, ready to help and willing, but couldn't for one reason or another. In short, they all tried their best and are still trying, leaving nothing undone. And I saw all whom they brought to me for contact and explained to every one of them my idea and object of making this film. And although they all sympathized, agreed, and appreciated a splendid scheme like this, none could come forward with the financial help that is needed for a production of this kind. But I will try still for a few days to see as many as they bring and explain to everyone the same thing over and over again, however tedious and tiresome it is. But even after trying till the last moment of my stay here, if nothing is arranged for an independent production by the 8th or 9th, I leave here for Vancouver. And then, as I already told you, I go to the Himalayas for a year for the great work that is ahead and in which you all, my dearest ones, have in future to participate, each in his or her capacity. I know, my dears, how hard it will be for those who love me as you do to be separated so long. But rest assured, dearest, I will always be with you. If you only try to realize how I have to do it all, simply for the sake of the work in which I wish you all to participate, you, mine own, would take it all so willingly, so lovingly. I know you love me too deeply to need telling you this. This is my first Christmas in the West, and how I wish you all, dearest, had been with me here. I miss you so, but I am and will always be with you. Sam Cohen, who had met Baba in Hollywood 2 years before, was living about halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco, among remote high sand dunes near the town of Oceano. Baba was to have visited Gavin Arthur's community at the sand dunes in 1932, and a special cabin had been built for him, but that visit never occurred. After meeting Baba again during the 1934 visit, Sam sent a telegram inviting Baba to visit him and his fellow Dunites, a few other like-minded, sincere individuals who had given up the world to seek something higher than acquired material possessions, and who lived in primitive cabins built from salvaged lumber in separate coves among the dunes. Baba cabled back that he would visit soon and would be bringing 18 people. Cohen's small cabin was not large enough for everyone, but fortunately, he was able to arrange accommodations a mile and a half away in Moy Mel, a group of cabins in one of the coves, at the cabin of Gavin Arthur, who was out of town. On 26 December, Baba, with the Mandali, Norina, Elizabeth, Ruano, Nadine, and the others, made the almost 4-hour drive to Oceano in 3 cars, arriving at 3:30 in the afternoon. A physician, Dr. Rudolph W. Gerber, lived in Oceano with his family. Baba stopped first at his home, and the doctor accompanied the party to the dunes. Baba and the men Mandali occupied Gavin's cabin, and the others stayed in the nearby ones. It was quite cold at night, but one of the inhabitants, George Blaise, whose habits resembled a sadhu's, merely wrapped a shawl around himself and covered himself with a blanket of newspapers when he slept. Baba and the Mandali passed an uncomfortable night in the cold with no heaters in their cabin. They had been told not to burn the kerosene lanterns for long, lest the poisonous fumes accumulate in the closed cabin. Baba granted interviews that day to those living nearby. Among them were Marion Thorpe, who stayed at the colony in the cottage that had been built for Baba, and Hugo Selig, a poet and Kabbalist, who was interested in developing higher consciousness. Baba explained certain aspects of lust, anger, and greed, which Selig had been confused about and wanted clarified. Privately, in response to a question from Adi Sr., Baba stated, India, by being ruled by Britain, actually exists in the best condition. It has no worry of territorial possession and fear of losing it. There are many factions in India, Hindu and Mohammedan, which cannot attain unity. So Swaraj, self-rule, to India would give no added scope of spiritual advancement. China is independent, but is chaotic. Materially speaking, also, India is not likely to be benefited by independence. That afternoon, all went to the beach with Baba. Due to the recent heavy rain and high tides, the car got stuck in the sand. Baba walked on ahead while the car was pushed out. Baba and the group left at 3:30 in the afternoon to return to Hollywood via Santa Barbara. Sam Cohen later wrote, Baba made quite a number of contacts at the dunes, and as always is the case with Baba, he stirred up everything. On one occasion, Norina telephoned an old friend, the screenwriter Mercedes de Acosta, 42, to tell her there was someone in town she should meet. Mercedes had been severely depressed of late and did not wish to meet anyone, but Norina urged her that she would not regret meeting this person. Who is it? Mercedes inquired. Norina would not say. I want it to be a surprise, she explained. Finally, Norina persuaded her friend to come. Norina was waiting at the door when Mercedes arrived on Monday, 31 December 1934. As a young girl, Mercedes had written impassioned letters to Jesus, Mary Magdalene, Joan of Arc, and other Christian saints. Upon seeing Baba, Mercedes felt an overwhelming warmth radiating from him. She rushed into his embrace and asked, "Who are you?" Baba gestured, "I am you." Then suddenly he spelled on the board, "Go and bring me your revolver." Mercedes was amazed, for she had told no one about the gun in her car. She went to the car and returned with the revolver, handing it to Baba. He took the bullets out one by one and handed the gun back to her. Baba then consoled her. Suicide is not the solution. It only entails rebirth with the same problems all over again. The only solution is God realization, to see God in everything. Everything is easy then. Promise me that you will put this revolver away and never again think of suicide.
Thank you,
Really?
Eva.
Oh, you're welcome.
Marilyn, would you like to read? I would like you to read from the top of the page, though. Again, Baba then consoled her.
How is the volume?
Good,
Is the
thank you.
volume good? I'm using the phone.
It's good.
Mona?
It's great.
Okay. Okay. Where am I beginning?
Page
Six.
1661, Baba then consoled her.
Oh, we're rereading that. Yes. Baba then consoled her. Suicide is not the solution. It only entails rebirth with the same problems all over again. The only solution is God realization, to see God in everything. Everything is easy then. Promise me that you will put this revolver away and never again think of suicide. Feeling his compassion, Mercedes promised. She then told Baba about her friend, the movie actress Greta Garbo, whom she loved dearly. Baba commented, You both were husband and wife in a past life in Italy. That is why there is such love between you. Mercedes said, this explains why Greta said when she first met me, "Oh, I have been looking for you." Baba added, she was a yogi in a previous life and died suddenly. She has latent yogic powers in her in this life too. She has latent yogic powers in her in this life too, but no spiritual elevation. She both suffers and enjoys simultaneously. She will be in the pangs of such agony one day that she may commit suicide. She needs my contact. If she sees me, all this will change. Mercedes was happy meeting Baba and presented him with a phonograph, a record player. After she left the room, Baba sent her a handkerchief via Adi Sr. as a New Year's gift and directed her never to give it away. He said that she would always sleep with it under her pillow, but wondered why Baba would think she would part with it. She telephoned Marina the next day and asked the same thing. Baba responded that he had given these instructions as she may have been tempted to give it to Greta Garbo. There's a footnote. Coincidentally, Mercedes' deceased older sister Rita had been married to Graham Phelps Stokes, Uncle W.E. Stokes. Rita had also been friends with Isabella Gardner, a relative of Catherine Gardner. Mercedes invited Baba to tea at her house. Baba had declined many invitations, but for her he consented. When the group drove to Mercedes' beautiful home on 6 January 1935, as soon as Baba stepped inside, he marched straight up to the top floor and proceeded to open every closet and cupboard in the house, ending up in the kitchen. There stood the cook, a woman with an irritable disposition whom Mercedes kept on because she was so good at her job. Beaming with a smile, Baba gently patted the cook on the shoulder and then sat down for tea. As Baba was ready to depart, Mercedes and her friends assembled on the porch while the cook peered through the screen door. Baba suddenly went back up the steps, shook the cook's hand, and returned to the car. On the way back, Baba ordered the driver to circle Greta Garbo's house 3 times. A few days later, Mercedes went away for several weeks, and when she returned, she found that her cook had transformed into a mild, angelic creature, meek as a lamb. Puzzled by this, she finally demanded to know what had produced this change. The cook explained, "I know you will find it hard to believe, but while you were away, I woke up one night to find my room flooded with light, and the master who came to tea entered my room. I got out of bed and touched him, and I swear I felt his robe in my hands. For some reason that I cannot explain, I have not felt angry since." In one of Vollmoller's scenarios, he had written that a husband and wife achieve God realization together. On Tuesday, 1 January 1935, Baba pointed out that this could never happen. He explained, "No 2 souls united in wedlock as husband and wife can be realized, capital R, realized together simultaneously. Never." Vollmoller asked Baba why this was so. Baba elaborated, drawing a diagram, "Because in the chain of births and deaths, each opposite sex changes simultaneously. That is, male becomes female and female becomes male." Baba drew a curving vertical line denoting the changing of male and female forms to illustrate his point. 2 souls reincarnate together, changing their sex for a number of lifetimes until they drift apart at that certain point nearest to realization. Baba concluded, "The secrets of life are absolutely unintelligible to the human mind. That is why they are never revealed as they are, but in different methods and shapes. Love, real and divine, does not evolve, nor is it realized from temporal love. They are both quite different. Human or temporal love at its best cannot be compared to divine love, even in its beginning stage. Referring to Volmoller's screenplay, Baba explained, Alan and Victory, the two characters in the script, do not earn or attain God realization through their love, because love divine and love temporal are poles apart, hence showing their strong romantic side and love in our story would weaken the real and fundamental principle or theme of the story and would again be misleading for reasons explained above. Baba himself then dictated to Volmoller the details of how the God realization scene should be portrayed on the screen, and also gave instructions for the spirit dance and resurrection scene to be shown after the character dies. He specified the scene will have 7 different movements accompanied by 7 different musical themes with 7 different colors in the background. Margaret, Quentin, and the others were working on the choreography for this. A woman actively involved with the Theosophist movement had spent many years in India. When she met Baba on the first, she asked him if she would ever go back to India. Baba told her she would, later in life, but then commented, truly speaking, it does not matter where one lives. It matters how one lives. Even living in the mountains or caves, one makes no progress at all if one's mind is engrossed in worldly Maya. On the other hand, one living in the world, doing all his duties therein, can achieve much if he is not engrossed in Maya and thinks of the path. The woman asked, have you met Annie Besant? No, but I know her. She is an advanced soul. But in spirituality, it is the heart that counts and not the head. Too much of intellectual discourses undermine the object with which these movements and organizations are started. Baba and his group took walks most evenings. Minta once recollected there were the most fabulous sunsets, but they were not to be enjoyed. Baba walked terribly fast, and we used to run to keep up with him.
Thank you. Mahu, could you read next?
Sure. This is page 1663 and year 1935. We continue. 2nd January 1935 was Minta's birthday, and chicken and ice cream and cake were served. Baba gave her a scarf, and Minta presented Baba with an electric razor, which Adi began using to shave Baba. That day, though Nani, the wife of the famous director Cecile B. DeMille, came for an interview and expressed her desire for her husband who had met Baba at Pickford to meet Baba again. And there's a footnote. Cecile B. DeMille's sister-in-law, Mrs. William DeMille, met Baba a few weeks earlier at the Shelton Hotel in New York on 14 December 1934. Although Cecile B. DeMille's second meeting with Baba never took place, William J. Halbut, 51, a well-known screenplay writer who adapted Limitation of Life, that's a movie, came to see Baba on the 4th, and now there is a footnote. Harold Bott had known Marina in New York in the late 1920s. He wrote the screenplay for Bridge of Frankenstein also.
Right.
Harold Bott found it difficult to articulate his question of how he could live in the world, attend to his job, and be spiritual at the same time. Baba understood what he meant, clarifying, quote, "You mean spiritually made practical?" Yes. And that is exactly it, Hilbert interrupted. Baba assured him, quote, "It is very easy, very simple. Its very simplicity makes it very difficult." Is it really? How strange, Herbert said. People's ideas about God and spirituality are so far-fetched, fantastic, and funny. I call my highest ideal life substance. I don't want to call it God, for that would be connected with the rigid church diction and dogmas, and my belief and ideal are greater. So life substance, whatever it is. Baba replied, names and terms do not matter. It is the feeling that counts. Herbert said, what then should I do to feel, as you say, and get a glimpse of it if I do not go deeper into it? And Baba said, I will explain. For a man of your position in life, it is all right in a civilized country of modern ideals and age to live as you do, always keeping your mind toward higher aspirations. To speak frankly, you are spiritually without being conscious of it. You are spiritual without being conscious of it. Am I really?
Excuse me, Mahu, I'm sorry. I have to go, so I have to stop sharing screen. Does someone else want to do it?
No, it's okay. We'll end it here. What page number are we on?
1663.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mahu, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but I have to take one of the dogs to the vet.
Sure. My